Hello. Hi, good. Nice. Good. Welcome. We're VULGO Theatre. There's three of us here. He's gone up there, don't worry, I'll be back. We are representing the Hungarian consulate this evening for the European Literature Night, and we'll be doing an extract from the novel The End by Attila Bartis. Hope you enjoy. Thank you very much.
As he headed for the airport early Saturday morning, fog hadn't quite cleared yet. And as the cab left the outskirts behind and headed for Terminal 2, they saw a black dog lying in the middle of the road. Its legs were still twitching. The speeding car ahead must have run it over. So, the cab driver slammed on the brakes, pulled over, and got out. Sorry about that.
That's all right. My name is András Szabad. I'm 52 years old. A photographer.
Fairly well known. Actually, very well known. Which, of course, is no reason for a person to go public with the story of your life. He is heading to Stockholm for a medical examination.
I haven't picked up a camera in 2 years. Before proceeding any further, I should probably make something quite clear. I do not believe in God. For a long time, I wasn't sure, but now I am.
Which, needless to say, is not about God.
It's about me.
He lacks faith. And hope without faith is just balancing the odds. Of course, such calculations are always a bit ridiculous. For instance, could the doctor in Pest have mixed up the results between two tests? Yes or no?
At the same time, we should keep in mind that even if I am ill-suited to figure out where God came from, a providence of sorts is clearly present in the world, and it is greater than we are.
Or maybe he came from us?
I was told to put my life down on paper. Because when you see the big picture, questions like these have a way of resolving themselves.
Budapest, fall 1960. Now, the darkness is really all he remembers from those days. The official paper, signed and stamped, made it quite clear that it would not last longer than 3 years. It did not state, however, that instead of his father, only his father's shadow would emerge through the prison gates. Nor did it state that when his father walked through the door, 3 years of waiting would kill his mother. They looked for a tobacconist where his father could buy some cigarettes, and then they walked to this apartment building where András still lives. Mostly.
Which room do you want?
They're all the same.
Shall I close the door between us?
Yes.
I'm going out to get us some robes, maybe some cold cuts.
Fine.
His father tried to arrange his room as it had once been.
Writing desk, an armchair, sofa with a small round table, a reading lamp, and a glass of water.
See, when they searched the house, they took his typewriter and a telescope that he sold when András was still a child.
Thanks to some miracle, they didn't seize the negatives and the photographs, despite the fact that the officer in charge said,
There is something fishy about a man taking pictures of the sky. What, I wonder, is behind the clouds?
You are right, Comrade Major. There is something behind the clouds. God. And I took all those pictures, hoping that God would show his face. And then I could show it to you.
At which Comrade Major, in front of Mother and András, dished out an ungodly slap. After 3 years in prison, his father was never quite certain again that he would like to show the face of our Lord to an agent of the secret police.
Merry Christmas, son.
He went to the kitchen to get something to eat. His father kept his pictures in a box in the pantry, above the salt and the sugar and the flour. There were some of their garden in Maybar, some pictures of András and his mother. The rest were of clouds.
I looked and looked, but I didn't see God.
To make sure that Gagarin would be safe, they first sent a bunch of dogs into orbit. The first was Laika, the stray husky Spitz mix. The dog catchers caught her in Moscow. The space researchers trained her in Star City. This meant that they turned her inside the centrifuge, faster and faster each day. At first they spun her too fast and the poor thing couldn't even pee. Then they lowered the speed of the centrifuge. She was sent into orbit the year I was put behind bars. Actually, they just wanted to know if Laika would survive takeoff and weightlessness. Thus, instead of a return module, it sufficed to supply a poison capsule for her. She survived takeoff, this much we know, and also that she didn't live to suffer the effects of the poison capsule. She was sitting inside an iron box, and by all odds, she saw nothing of which Gagarin later said, beautiful. It is so beautiful. I don't know whether they have conducted experiments to find out what happens to corpses in outer space. Does the body start to decompose in a vacuum? Do we take along the vermin that gnaw the flesh off of our bones? Do corpses smell in outer space? Or is there no place for them anywhere except for the soil from which they spring? Be that as it may, Khrushchev told Gagarin beforehand that he must not find God. I looked, but I didn't see God. This is what he said in the video. Which, come to think of it, is a rather peculiar way of conducting research. I wonder if Khrushchev considered whether Gagarin would be able to follow his instructions should he find himself standing face to face with the Almighty. Of course, the odds of that happening were slight, and Khrushchev was right in thinking that. But still, what if God can be seen from everywhere in the entire universe with the exception of Earth? What if his light cannot penetrate the Earth's atmosphere? The ozone knocks it back like an ultraviolet light. Even Khrushchev couldn't have known this for sure. What can I say? The man was irresponsible. Once Gagarin was in orbit, they didn't entrust him with the mission, which was only logical. It would have been too risky, just as there was no knowing in what, say, God's characteristics were different in outer space than on Earth. So there was no knowing how human characteristics and traits might be different up there. Besides, for lack of previous experience, Gagarin couldn't be trained to deal with too many eventualities. In this respect, the first man was indeed not unlike the last dog. Gagarin's most important task was self-observation, to observe and take notes on what is happening to him, which, let's admit, it's not an easy task, even under earthly conditions. He was supplied with a notebook and a pencil. Given the weightlessness, the pencil floated away, so we don't know what he might have noted down, only what interested him the most when he talked with Earth.
I'm doing fine. Can you tell me something about the flight? I'm doing fine. I feel great. Is there anything you can tell me? I'm doing fine. I'm feeling fine. Say something to me. I am doing fine. Perfectly fine. Tell me something about the flight. I'm doing fine. I feel great. Will you please transmit the flight data?
But they didn't tell him anything, because they got their calculations wrong. And for very nearly 30 out of the 108 minutes, they didn't know which of the press releases they had composed earlier would be in place. And this despite the fact that, unlike Laika, they furnished Gagarin with a parachute, so he could catapult out should the space module begin to plummet. In short, Gagarin was most preoccupied with what interested Laika and all the other great observers. Not weightlessness, not how beautiful it all is, not even whether God can be seen from up there, and if so, how that affects him, but whether after self-observation, he'd make it back alive. In the end, he did. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Hope you enjoy this little performance. Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to do this like another